Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me right here in Solomon's Temple. Sorry for the little hiccup. Great to have you here. I hope you're doing very well today. Thank you so much for joining me. Please make sure you subscribe to the channel Solomon's Temple. That's very important. Subscribe to the channel Solomon's Temple. I see quite a lot of people trooping in now. Bongani, good evening to you also. And he's saying good evening, Uncle Soul, and all the beings. Good to have everyone here. Please make your comment in the comment section. Let me know where you're watching from. And let me know your thoughts just about issues that are all around us. Please make sure you do that. If you're interested in YouTube mentorship and training, reach out to me using the number on the screen. Reach out to us there. If you're interested, reach out to us using the number. Anyway, so I want to talk about the false prophet shepherd Bushiri and his private jet. Now, a lot of people do not know that this guy acquired a private jet. They call it, I'm trying to remember the name of the brand actually. You know, private jets, they have different sort of level. This one is called a Bombardier, I think. He acquired it for 50 million rand. So let's say in dollars, how much are we talking about? The dollar is almost 20 today, but then it was maybe around 15, 16. So maybe $3 million, right? So it's kind of like a fairly, for $3 million, kind of like a fairly nice jet, because that was the thing, you know. Part of what the gimmicks that these guys play is they show people that God has blessed them with money. So they have to acquire all of this thing, Rolls Royce. You see him posting pictures with him on different cars, on Instagram, on social media. All of that is just to tell people, look, hey, God is with me and God is blessing me. If you come closer, sow a seed, you're also going to be beneficiary of that. All is just lies upon lies, right? So he acquired his jet, and not long after that, in 2020, the COVID, the whole COVID thing came. So couldn't use it for like a year or so. And then obviously the big blow up came where he was arrested with his wife and he had to leave and all that kind of stuff. Now, when he left, people in his church lost a lot of money, over 100 million rand, because he brought in some business partners to set up like a pyramid scheme, invest money, and then they lost money. Now he's claiming that, why are they trying to sell his plane? Because the people who lost money, it was just because of the people who came to his church. Anyway, let me show you, let me not even go there yet. Let me just show you what I'm talking about. So what happens to Bushiri's jet? There was a court order. No, this one here. Yeah, there's a court order in Pretoria here in South Africa that granted the NPA, that's the National Prosecuting Authority, an order to auction the private jet, which has been grounded at Lanseria Airport in Johannesburg since Bushiri and his wife fled to Malawi in 2020. Can you believe it's 5 years now since they fled? I tell people like Bushiri, 20 years later, they're going to be talking about that case. He will still be in Malawi. He will never get. There's no way they're going to get him here. So the jet is here at Lanseria Airport, not far from where I live, since 2020. So now the National Prosecuting Authority, that is like, they got an order to auction the plane in order to recover monies that he defrauded people. So what did Bushiri say? Following the court order, Bushiri said the recent announcement by the NPA to sell his private jet has left him astonished given the circumstances surrounding this decision. Now, this is a guy who said they're trying to recover money that people lost, over 100 million. He brought in a couple of people into his church, introduced them to the church, say, we're going to do business. You invest money. Once you invest money, you're going to get, 50% return, 100% return. They invested over 100 million. The money vanished. And that's part of the charges that he's supposed to face in South Africa. Before now, obviously, he ran away. So now he is saying, why sell my plane? Matter of fact, I used 70 million naira, 70 million rand of my money to pay off some of these people for my church members who invested this money. And it was out of my goodwill that I decided to use 70 million rand of my money to pay them. So that's like much more than the what he paid for the private jet. Now, as a pastor or as a leader, he said that the people he brought to the church, he didn't know that they were going to be that way, and they got the money and then they vanished into the thin air. How can people just vanish? People cannot just vanish. You brought them into the church. You introduced them. You were part of the scam. People invested money. You convinced people to invest money. You use scriptures to convince people to put in money as investor. They lost money. I have list of people with their names and their numbers that they sent me like 5 years ago. And then you saying these people who you brought to your church to get people to invest just vanish into the thin air, that you don't know them. You were part of that scam. So he is part of that scam. And he's now saying, out of your goodwill, the goodness of his heart, he used 70 million rand of his money to pay off some of this credit from these guys who invested. I wouldn't do that. Why would I use my money to pay off for the crime of somebody else? So all that he's saying is a lie. He knows these people. He was part of the plan to scam people until things now blew up. That's just the way that it is. Now he's crying. Where's the private jet? This is the private jet. You can see it right here. So it's sort of like a nice little jet, It's not in the category of the jets that people like them, Bishop Oyedepo and Adeboye, those guys, they fly, their jet is like massive. It's some of the best in the world. Or Kenneth Copeland, all these prosperity teachers. So this is him here, obviously, in the plane, chilling. These are the kind of photos they show us that a lot of people just fall for it. They want part of that blessing. And this is him here disembarking from the plane with his wife. You could see, So this is your guy. This is the plane that's now going to be auctioned. Probably going to sell it for half the price or something. Now he's crying. Why do you have to do that? But you see, the fact is, a lot of these charlatans and false prophets who are using the church and the pulpit to scam people, one day things are going to cut up. One thing with them is they don't know how to clean up after making a mess. They'll create mess here, mess there, mess there. Because they feel they're invincible, they're powerful, they're influential, they have money, they can get away with anything. And matter of fact, they've gotten away with a whole lot of stuff. But then, like they say in Nigeria, one day is one day. Every day for the thief, one day for the owner. One day, God's judgment is going to come on them. God's exposure is going to come on them, and it's going to catch up with them. But because of their folly and because of their blindness that they allow Satan to blind them up, they would think, no, they're going to get away with it. What's the worst case? What's going to happen to them? This is a motor show. This recent Timothy motor show, the Nigerian evangelist, pastor here in South Africa. He spent 8 years in prison. Yeah, he was freed, acquitted, but he spent 8 years. He would never imagine he was going to. A matter of fact, I had, when he had a church in Durban, I had that the head of police there was his friend. So there's just nothing they can do to him. So a lot of them just feel like they're invincible. Here's Bushiri complaining. Why are they selling the plane? He's complaining that he actually even used, I think, 15 million rand of his money to pay up the police, to pay up certain people as bribes. And now he's talking. You know, he had hotels. Yeah, thank you for reminding me, Bongani. His hotels and cars were auctioned. He has hotels. He has cars that were auctioned. His Rolls Royce, Bentley, auction. Everything of Bushiri is going. If he didn't defraud anyone, there would be no need to auction anything. But you see, part of the charges against him was about 100 million rand was invested into this whole pyramid scam, this business. They call it Shepherd Bushiri Investment, SBI. And he brought in these guys into it. And he was encouraging the church, convincing them, using scriptures, using the pulpit to tell them, invest, 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 invest. And they believed him. And they kept investing. And all of a sudden, they couldn't get their money. 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. They started saying, yeah, what's going on here? So Shepherd Bushiri must not come around. You can imagine if Shepherd Bushiri was still very much in South Africa, never arrested, never get exposed. You can imagine the kind of private jet he would be using now, probably a bigger one, because he would have made so much money already. You can imagine how many people he would have deceived and brought into that congregation and defraud them. You can imagine how many young women he would have, abused. Now he's crying. No, don't sell my private jet. What business have you with a private jet? You come from Malawi, the poorest country in Africa. If you are really a man of God, you would never even imagine flying a private jet. You would use that money to go to Malawi and support families, build schools, hospitals, clinics. Malawi is the poorest country in the world. He comes from there. And then you, as a man of God, you are buying a private jet. That is a total abuse of the gospel, embarrassment to Jesus. Go to Malawi. If you think you've seen poverty, go to Malawi. You will see what poverty is. That's why I have a problem with the Nigerian kind of gospel also. There's so much poverty in Nigeria. Nigeria is a poverty capital of the world. Forget about what you see on movies or music or what you see with politicians and all that. There's a lot of people in Nigeria that have money, corrupt people, most of them stole from the government. And because they stole from the government, monies that are supposed to be used to build schools and hospitals and roads and all that for the country, now you have more poor people. The government schools are almost non-existent. Private schools are raking in money now because you can't take your kids to government schools. Most of them are not really up to scratch because of corruption. But then you have all these guys who are building big churches, who are riding expensive cars, who are flying private jets in Nigeria, and you think you want to worship them? You think you want to go and say, no, that is the God's blessing? God has nothing to do with that. Don't bring God into your private jet's blessing in a country like Nigeria, where there are needs everywhere. So we must stay away from this. We must stay away from all these people trying to deceive us by telling us it's God's blessing. They are the ones getting blessed. You are not getting blessed. They keep telling you you're going to get blessed. When are you going to get blessed? For me, any pastor in Nigeria, prophet or apostle or whoever that has a private jet in Nigeria, that person for me has taken a path away from the gospel. of truth, the gospel in the Bible. So you see all this poverty around you, or do you live in a cocoon that you don't even know that there's poverty all around you, there's needs all around you? You can fly business class or whatever, at least. But to have a private jet, do you know what it takes to have a private jet? How much you pay for a private jet and how much you have to maintain every year when you're flying from here to there? Do you know how much you pay? Just even by parking your private jet at an airport, do you know how much you pay? That's an abuse of the gospel. God has nothing to do with private jets that your bishops and your prophets are flying with. God has nothing to do with it. Matter of fact, God is very angry with it, not happy with it, that they are flying private jets in a continent where his people are in poverty. There are needs because the same prophets and pastors and bishops encourage the politicians to keep stealing, the government people to keep stealing, and they pay their tithes and they pay and they give to the church. Why do you think the Nigerian church is rich? Why do you think they have so much money? You think it just comes from business people? No, guys. Most of the guys that give these guys money, they stole it. Anyway, don't get me in there. God bless you. Have a good evening. Oops. Not sure what's going on here.